So here is Project Dry Out, this old orchard that was put in probably in the 50s or 60s. Apples in a valley, so gets super wet. Like any valley around here, it's just soaking wet for at least half the year, usually much more than that. And we've been pruning and grazing this area a little bit, pruning more, and mowing, and it's responded okay, but not as well as it should. And I think it's just because the soils are totally anoxic. So finally got around to this year in the dry season, made a pond with a little mini excavator. Took about 3 hours, and it's a very small pond, but it's catching all of the water that kind of comes in this drainage between those 2 points. There's about 5 acres or so that comes into here, and then it just goes right through the orchard. So I put a 1-inch poly tube in. It was sticking up this morning, as you see in the earlier slides, and forgot about it. I was going to cut it and put a screen on as I normally do. I just like fold over a Volgard and zip tie it, and that's a nice screen inlet, keep it from getting clogged. And of course the rainy season comes quick and catches you by surprise sometimes. I should have cut it earlier and I didn't, and so then I was totally underwater. So I could reach in with my pull saw actually and cut a forked stick and hold it with my knees, the stick, and like be able to cut it. So that's draining this pond right now, and it is actually working. It's keeping up with the inflow, more than keeping up the inflow, because this was the overflow, and it's slowed down significantly. There actually still is a tiny bit. So hopefully this 1-inch pipe tubing will keep up with what's coming in. I'm sure it won't in a storm or right after a storm, but that's okay. I just want to be able to get a lot of the water that comes in here out. Not all of it. Maybe there'll be a couple really wet months where the flow in exceeds the 1-inch pipe out. Could I have put 2-inch pipe out? For sure. But I had the 1-inch, and I hate buying this stuff. I did have to buy more to run it further, but I'm buying a lot less than I would have. And yeah, one of those things too, where I just wanted to get it in and done. I could always add a heavier one. If this seems to work at all, I can come out here and dig up this trench very easily and have a higher capacity line out. So we'll see how this works. I'll know it'll probably take a couple years to see how this orchard responds fully. Maybe by the end of next growing season at the soonest. So I'm just going to attach the rest of this poly tubing and run it out of this basin, because I don't want to just come back in and keep soaking the bottom half. So I'm going to run it out to the nearest ridge, which is a bit of a keyline strategy, which is nice to always take your excess water and put it where it's dry. And that will be above some other springs we have that take advantage of this whole knoll, infiltration of the knoll. And we'll see what that does. That'll be interesting, because we don't do this very often. We're bringing water from one drainage into an entire other drainage. But it does present some opportunities. I want it to stay low maintenance, so I'll put a screen on that, and it should run year round, because it's, as long as it's always flowing. I found water lines don't freeze here, or they can even be a trickle. And it'll be interesting. We'll probably end up creating a little wetland depending on where I leave it that doesn't exist right now, which is fine, depending where it is. I want to run it past a logging road I have, so I'm not soaking that road all winter because I use it. And yeah, should be interesting to see. Keep you guys updated. All right, got almost the whole pipe laid out here. I'm going to bury some of it in the spring, probably not now. Really cool to see that in this area that I logged 2 years ago, there are a handful of red oaks coming up here. And it's really neat. We're just at the edge, because there's no oaks basically on this property, and there's almost none in this entire county. Well, at least the mountainous side of the county, and this whole ecoregion basically has very few oaks, certainly right around here. There's not many, and so we're at the edge of the succession of a wave succession coming in here, and we have helped motivate it even more and instigate it by spreading thousands of acorns on the property. We collect them where some settler had the forethought probably of planting some 100 years ago plus. That's probably why they're there, about 1.5 miles away. And we've spread them all over, and we don't see them come up except where there's some light access. Probably they sprout and they just don't get anywhere because there's not enough energy for them. So it's really neat to see these clearings actually now kind of coming up with oak. We also plant oak trees, but the broadcasting is a nice way of doing it in zone 4, kind of large scale kind of forestry promotion. I will have to keep some of the spruce and hemlock that's coming in. It's mostly spruce and fir actually down, but that's easy to do. And this time of year is a great time to do it because you can see the oak so easily. But this guy's got at least a few years worth of light. Nice thin canopy, not 100% sun by any means, but enough. All right, that actually took about a minute or less. You can, with 125 psi tubing, turns out you can muscle them together without the propane torch. Probably a little better if you apply a little heat. I think the seal might be better, but I'm not worried again because we're working at incredibly low psi, just siphoning some water from a pond. If you were burying this, you would be doing 2 hose clamps opposed on each side, so 4 total, and want to do it very, very carefully. So let's take a look at the other end. I bet we're going to see some nice fast flow. Oh yeah, flowing good. Sweet. So that's definitely more gallons per minute than was up there, which makes sense because we're pulling on it. The water's pulling on itself now. There's a siphon effect happening. So we're probably draining that pond pretty good. And I'm psyched. These trees, sorry, sugar maples, you're gonna get a little wetter than you're used to. These 3 sugar maples. Used to be a big sugar maple there. You can see the curve. So those were stump sprouts of a much larger sugar maple, which was like this, which was everywhere here. All these like 6, 5, 6, 7, even 8 foot diameter maples. That's what this whole place was. And in the warmer spots of the state, those were understory trees below American chestnuts. It'll be like that again. Some version of that. Probably the species will be a little different, but I won't see that. But well, maybe no humans will see that, but it'll happen, which will be pretty cool. Probably, unless like an asteroid hits or something. And, well, then maybe it'll happen again in a very long time. But it's all going to come around. You see a curve like that, you know those are old stump sprouts. Not even that old. I mean, I'm just 1 generation removed from not seeing those stumps. Even 1 generation before me could walk through the woods in the first half of their life here and see the original stumps that were 50 to 150 years old, still decaying. But those stumps are now definitely rotted back into the ground. They're no more to be seen. But the next forest, much more denuded forest, is here, coming up from them. And these might be not even the first stump sprouts from that tree, by the way. Probably they're not. They've probably been cut and maybe even cut again. And then these are the stump sprouts of the stump sprouts of the stump sprouts of the grandma and grandpa trees that were here for 200, 300, 400 years in one lifespan. So these guys only lived 40 to 60, 70, 80 years until loggers came through and cut, because after that amount of time, there's always been commercially desirable wood that forms, and so they get logged. No area. Vermont, New England's pretty much going longer than about 40 to 80 years between cutting events of pretty much all the trees in a cycle or high graded at once. These are pollards, by the way. One of the reasons I'm cutting them high is to be able to get above deer browse and then have continual growth. It's quick firewood, and I need to come in here and actually grab some of this wood in the winter. I let him here for a season. I didn't need him last year for firewood for next year. That's a pine, but the rest are red maples, which isn't the best firewood, but it grows fast. See, the deer have been pretty active in here. I'm not seeing many deer lately, but they are here. Wanted to end with a slide showing how we map infrastructure like this. So when we lay something, especially underground, I'll try to walk it right away with my GPS tracks software to map it. I found this is the best app for iPhone. I've tried others like Gaia GPS, and I like this one the most for two reasons in particular. One is that you get the best map that you should use most of the time, which is the contour lines on an aerial. So it's like satellite view with contour lines. They give you 20 footers. You could probably get LiDAR for it, hopefully soon. The other reason I really like this program is you can use it even if no reception or you're in airplane mode or whatever. You can download all your maps beforehand on when you have wireless, and you can download them to quite a high quality and then get it when you have no reception. It's pretty awesome. Just uses your GPS, and we don't have reception really often here in Vermont, so it's awesome. GPS tracks.